Oh my God. Can we actually have a little bit of skepticism, please? Really, an oil expert didn't like wind and solar. No. I, for one, am shocked.
Now, I don't know for sure, but I may be the oil and gas expert he was talking about. I never said I didn't like wind and solar, though. What I said was wind was going to be a complete failure. Didn't say anything at all about solar. And when I say it's going to be a failure, what I mean is it is never going to be a tool that we can use to achieve net zero by 2050. It's not even a possibility. Skepticism is great. It really is. But here's what you got to understand. We used facts and science and the scientists and the data, when we're looking at global warming and climate change and how all this is occurring, we really relied on the scientists. You know what I mean? We really relied on them. But who did we rely on to determine how we were going to execute this energy transition? Who did we rely on for that? Did we use facts and science? Or did we use ideology? Well, we relied on politicians to determine how we were going to transition. So what that means is we're relying on ideology because politicians know nothing of science and facts. So let me pose this question to you, because there's something else in the world going on that the politicians are not telling us. And the reason they're not telling us that is because they know everyone would say, wait a minute, that's not going to work. Because what we are saying is that we are going to be net zero by 2050. We are going to drastically reduce investments in fossil fuels, and we are going to replace that with renewable energy. But what we're not going to tell the people is that we have already cut nuclear power generation by 1/3 globally while we're doing all this, and going to continue to cut nuclear power generation. So you're trying to convince people that we're transitioning. Meanwhile, we have closed over 200 nuclear reactors around the world. And we're going to reduce investments in fossil fuels, and solar and wind is going to fix everything. Well, I'm sorry, but the math don't math. And the comments that I made about wind energy were that we should be subsidizing more nuclear energy instead of more wind energy, because that will actually provide the world the power it needs in the future. Because in the next 25 years, we're going to add 250 quadrillion BTUs of electricity demand around the world. And if you don't know how much that is, and I'm guessing you don't, it's roughly 2.5 times the amount of electricity or total energy that the United States currently uses. So we're going to add 2.5 more United States to the world in the next 25 years. And while doing that, we're going to continue to reduce nuclear energy. We're going to continue to reduce investments in fossil fuel energy, and wind and solar is going to fix it all. Right. And the ignorance in this energy transition and the way it is being executed is because it is purely ideological. There is no scientific basis of fact at all regarding the transition itself. We can use that to determine climate change is a thing, and we trust the scientists. But when it comes to the energy transition, the actual important part of all of that, we're going to use ideology. There are already 1 billion people in the world that don't have access to electricity. That number is only going to increase as electricity demand increases exponentially over the next 25 years. And what you are going to see when that all starts to unfold is the mass migration of people from poor countries, from countries that go without, to countries that have. Like, you're going to see mass migrations from like Africa to Europe, South and Central America to Northern America. Because the world is not going to produce enough energy for the people that live on it. And when those mass migrations start occurring, the places where the mass migrations of people are moving to, suddenly they're not going to have enough energy to meet the needs of all of the new people arriving in their countries. You see, energy is not only a national security issue for the United States, it is a global security issue for the world. It is about so much more than people realize. It is the difference between poverty and wealth. It can be the difference between life and death. It can be the difference between starving and eating. And with the way we are executing the energy transition globally, there is a very good chance that energy shortages are going to be so great and energy is going to be so rare in comparison to the population and needs of the globe. Energy itself is going to become a currency. Yes, that's how valuable it will be. So just to be clear, it's not that I'm against wind and solar. I'm not against wind and solar at all. I am pro a scientific, fact-based approach to an energy transition, which would mean more solar because solar has a lot of upside and is really good. And it would also mean fuck wind. How about some nuclear? That's basically what it means. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an oil and gas expert.